Pleasure to meet you. B.
B! My name's Herbert!
Then why are you following the Prime Minister?
It's just a job, sir! Some old bloke paid me to...
Aí.
Smug bastard.
Smug bastard.
Go on. You're embarrassing me. I wonder what's going on.
She's fast. Whoa, we killed that gamer. And we were supposed to tackle her, what the?
Bloody hell! Where'd you come from?
Well,
We
I was
didn't
born in
kill
Koniu,
her.
but that's by the by. Who are you working for?
I never got his name. Old chap, big moustache, wore some kind of uniform. Who's ours, maybe?
What's his game?
Please, you'll kill me.
And a 3-story drop will shatter your legs and send you to the workhouse. Difference is you can run from him.
Tomorrow! My lads are going to attack the Prime Minister's carriage on the way to Parliament.
Perfect.
Very well, you've...
Now my favorite bug. Bullets. Oh no, bug did not activate. Okay, so they're only activate if I'm changing characters. Encyclopedia. People. Allies. Benjamin Disraeli. Date of birth 21st December 1804. Died 19 April 1881. A novelist, a dandy, and a man practiced in law. Benjamin Disraeli, albeit surprisingly, came to be one of Europe's leading statesmen. The first and thus far only Jewish-born Prime Minister of England. Disraeli became famous for shaping the modern Conservative Party and for his feud with William Ewart Gladstone. Disraeli was born in London in 1804 to Isaac and Maria Disraeli. When Benjamin was 12 years of age, Isaac converted his family to the Anglican Church following a dispute with the local synagogue. Later, Benjamin would further anglicize his name from Disraeli to Disraeli when he went to work for Maples law firm in 1821, though his exact motivation are unknown. Possibly he got fed up of spelling it out for people. Before entering the House of Commons, Disraeli dipped his toe in the waters of both literature and the stock exchange. He was fortunate that it was only his toe, too, because when he found himself both a critical failure and massively in debt, he suffered a nervous breakdown. Still, despite it all, he finally found his way into Parliament in 1837, gaining a seat in the Conservative Party. It was during this period that he forged his lifelong rivalry with Gladstone. In 1859, Disraeli married Marianne Lewis for what was thought by many to be financial reasons. But the couple at least grew to love each other and remained bound until her death in 1872. "This married me for money," Mary once stated, "but if he had the chance again, he would marry me for love." Disraeli became Prime Minister for the first time in 1868 but failed to win that year's election. He led the opposition to majority once again in 1874, becoming Prime Minister for a second time with a reign lasting 6 years. Suffering from gout and severe asthma, Disraeli died in 1881. Queen Victoria, with whom he had made good friends over the course of his political tenure, was distraught by his passing, but, due to the royal protocol, was forbidden from attending his funeral. Tell me about other people. Date of birth 29 December 1809, date of birth 19th May 1898. Wow, that's actually long for that time. Okay. Known as the People's William by his supporters, which has to be one of the weirdest nicknames I've ever heard. William Edward Gladstone was Prime Minister of the United Kingdom 4 times and ranked one of the greatest Prime Ministers of all time. Born in Liverpool, young Willie was the fifth of 6 children to Anna Mackenzie and Sir John Gladstone. He attended Church at Oxford, where he studied mathematics and classics, served as president of the Union Debating Society, and became an advocate for tourism. Gladstone was elected to Parliament in 1852. In the House of Commons, he was a member of high tourism and opposed the abolition of slavery. Later, when slavery was abolished, he helped his father collect over £10,000 from the government for having owned over 2,000 slaves across the 9 plantations in the Caribbean. What? Wait. Later, when slavery was abolished, he helped his father collect over £100,000 from the government for having owned over 2,000 slaves across the 9 plantations in the Caribbean. What? So he got money because he had slaves? I don't get it if I'm understanding it wrongly, but I think it's not okay. But during his time in Parliament, he met and began to, despite his long life rival Benjamin Disraeli, appeal by his popeship attire. Where he excelled in the House of Commons, he struggled in his social life. Gladstone had a difficult time finding a wife. After being rejected by both Carolina Eliza Farquhar and Lady Frances Harriet Douglas, he met the charming Catherine Glynn. The two were later married and stayed together for 59 years until he passed away, because 59 years must have been tiring. In 1840, Gladstone took it upon himself to rescue and rehabilitate prostitutes, and a practice he continued for the next several decades despite the backlash from his peers. After leaving and returning to Parliament several times, Gladstone served as a Chancellor of the Exchequer in 1859 and leader of the Liberal Party in 1868. He served his first premiership later that year until 1874 and then promptly retired. Angry with Disraeli changes during his retirement, he returned to Parliament and served another 3 times as Prime Minister. Unlike his rival, Gladstone was known for his poor relations with Queen Victoria. She is quoted having complained about him, saying, "He always addresses me as if I were a public meeting." William Gladstone died of heart failure in old age 1898 and was buried in Westminster Abbey. His wife later laid next to him. After she died too. Thank you for clarification. Crimean War. Ooh, okay. In perhaps the pettiest reason to start a war since the Americans got a bit shirty over our borrowing of their sailors, in 1812, the Crimean War, 1853 to 56, began as a disagreement over whether Catholic or Orthodox Christians should control the churches in the Holy Land. Okay, nice. Of course, it was really about whether Britain or Russia was allowed to have the bigger empire, but we don't talk about that in polite society. Casus belli was when Napoleon III sent a warship into the Black Sea to politely suggest that the Ottoman Sultan Abdülmecid I, crazy name, crazy guy, acknowledged French Catholicism as the authority over Christian sites in the Holy Land. This rather annoyed Tsar Nicholas I, since up till this point the Eastern Orthodox Church had controlled those sites, and he responded by sending 2 corps to the banks of the Danube. Diplomatic relations soared from there, and since the British and French were leery of Russian expansionism and had troops in the area anyway, they decided they might as well pitch in on the Ottoman side. As you'd expect from the name, most of the conflict was fought in the Crimea, with the Russian Empire on one side and the alliance of Britain, France, the Ottoman Empire and the Sardinia on the other. It was also one of the first truly modern wars, with large masses of men shooting each other over which tough got to call themselves emperor of whatever can be called modern. Technology like the exploding artillery shell, the railroad, and the telegraph shaped the conflict. And the advent of photographic technology meant it was one of the first wars to be documented in the press. This was particularly delightful, in that the great legacy of the Crimean War was the rank incompetence and general mismanagement on the part of the leadership of all sides. Something to be really proud of there. If you're going to be inept, be really inept. For the citizen on the home front puffed up with patriotic fervor, this was a bit like going to see your favorite band in concert only to realize that they only sounded good thanks to autotune and roughless ending. The war ended in 1856 when the Allies took the key Russian city of Sevastopol. Recognizing the inevitable of defeat, Nicholas I sued for peace, and as part of the terms the Black Sea was declared neutral. Moldavia and Wallachia were made independent, and everyone more or less tried to forget the entire embarrassing debacle. It did lead to extensive calls for military reform and to nationalist movements across Eastern Europe, which doesn't quite seem worth the lives of 500,000 people. But what do I know? There's like one Battle of Balaclava. On 24 October 1854, the Allied forces of Britain, France and the Ottoman Empire had settled in for a long winter siege of the Russian port of Sevastopol. The British under Lord Raglan took Balaclava and the right flank of the siege. This was a problem because the British did not actually have the manpower to hold the right flank. See Crimean War. Sensing weakness, Russian forces charged the British defenses and managed to capture several redouts and their artillery pieces. It was a major, though not ultimately significant, victory for the Russians. But the battle is most famous for that pin to incompetent leadership, the senseless loss of life that is in the chart of the Light Brigade. I'm sure you've read this poem, and if not, for God's sake go read the book. Cannon to the left of them, cannon to the right of them, etc. There were a lot of cannons, is the point. The whole thing is fraught with ambitiously and recrimination on all sides, but broadly, here's how it happened. Lord Raglan, the overall commander of the British forces, gave the order to Lord Lucan, who commanded the cavalry forces, to send the Light Brigade to harry the Russian forces, who had seized the artillery position on the south side of the battlefield. Unfortunately, the courier who brought the order to Lord Lucan didn't deliver the information clearly enough. Lord Lucan ordered Lord Cardigan, who commanded the Light Brigade, and was incidentally Lucan's brother-in-law and who hated him intensively, to charge a fortified Russian artillery position at the end of the valley. If you're beginning to notice a common theme of Lord this and Earl of such and such, massively cocking up operations, you've hit upon the key problem following bored aristocrats to buy officers' commissions. At any rate, despite this order making as much sense as strip naked and dance the Argentine tango with sight of the Russian guns to demoralize the enemy, Lord Cardigan duly led his men into the teeth of the enemy artillery. The net result was that the Light Brigade suffered roughly 40% casualties. The Russians were very confused, and Lord Cardigan, upon seeing that the battle was lost, buggered off back to his private yacht for steaks and champagne. It was that sort of war. There's like last one, Court Practice Act. Rigging election was a national pastime in 19th century Britain, and by 1868 things had gotten so bad it wasn't supporting anymore. Thus, Prime Minister Disraeli introduced this bill in order to make the process interesting again. The bill's principal effect was to transfer responsibility for trying elections petitions from. You know what? Let's slow down and back up a bit. Prior to this act, whenever the result of a parliamentary election was up for debate, the result was decided by a vote in the House of Commons. Shockingly enough, this meant that 9 times out of 10, the candidate from the majority party turned out to have won the election after all. Disraeli's new law moved responsibility for deciding election outcomes to a special administrative appointment from the Court of Common Pleas, the Square of Pleas or the Queen's Bench, which meant that to rig an election you now had to buy off 2 judges instead of an entire House of Parliament. A much more sensible and streamlined system of corruption. It's this slow, steady march toward efficiency that makes the British government the finest in the world. Good. What am I supposed to do, Yuri?
No more! I'm not dying here, not like this. Do as you like.
Okay, I guess it's nothing. What happened with the train? Why it's here? We changed. Wow. It was never here. There are some changes to it. I'm looking for any yellow chest that I have made, but I don't see any. Oh, there it is. There is one. So, what do you say about trying to get this one? Is there any other? I guess not. What's this? I don't know. Let's. Okay, so here's a gold chest, and this is probably under the ground, as I remember correctly. Let's go. Maybe there's gonna be nice weapon or something. Then we go for the mission. Okay, definitely is underground. So we expect it to be, but as I remember previously that chest there, that we had a trouble to find an entrance. Open? Not really. I you go there. The challenge starts? No. Actually no. Ah, look at this, okay. The only brace I saw, nothing cool. No new outfit, no better firearm. Just a simple, so bad bracelet. How to get there fast?
Yeah! 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 Let's go.
Something new to be a probable location, yes. Westminster, 10 Downing Street. Despite being known around the world as the official residence of the Prime Minister of Great Britain, it wasn't until 1908 that Prime Ministers were legally required to live at 10 Downing Street. The street was named after George Downing, a man who served as Oliver Cromwell's chief of intelligence during the English Civil War. When the monarchy reclaimed power at the end of the war, Downing used his powers of persuasion to avoid execution and pledge his services to King Charles II. The first residence built on the site of 10 Downing Street was the home of the Sir Thomas Knivet, which was given to him by Queen Elizabeth in 1581. Knivet's greatest accomplishment was arresting Guy Fawkes and foiling the terrorist attack on Westminster Palace. I guess that's a worthwhile house. Now, the first Prime Minister to reside at 10th Downing Street was Sir Robert Walpole. King George II offered Walpole the house as a gift in 1732, but Walpole only accepted the offer on the condition that 10th Downing Street became the official residence of the Prime Minister, because nearly all Prime Ministers preferred to live in their own homes. 10th Downing Street fell into disrepair over time. By the time Benjamin Disraeli was elected Prime Minister in 1868, the helm was, in his words, dingy and decaying. Disraeli convinced Parliament to pay to renovate the residence, although Disraeli had to pay out of pocket to refurbish the private rooms. The bodyguard. Jacob plans to warn the Prime Minister of the threat to his life and question him as to the identity the man in uniform named B. Cape's gold red cloak.
So much for the house call. I'll have to find a way into that carriage.
Infiltrate, hold.
What's the meaning of this? Who the devil are you?
Prime Minister, I'm your new bodyguard, Jacob Fry.
I wasn't informed of any new bodyguard. Who's your commanding officer?
Let the boy speak, Dizzy.
Madam, apologies. But we've learned of a threat on your life. And the Met thought it best to move quickly.
Threat? What sort of threat?
That sort. If you excuse me a moment.
Where'd they come from? Take cover, lads!
Tear you apart!
See here. What's all this?
Not so fast, Your Excellency.
How this guy was running away,
Get
what
back
the...
here with that Prime Minister! Slow down
What
now.
are you doing, dude? I... No, for real.
You're dead, mate!
Are you like normal person or not? Okay, let's shoot the driver. It's easier this way.
Everyone all right?
Jump! No way, no way, dude! What the hell? What the hell? What was that? Jacob! Jacob! Seriously, Jacob! Please! Chill.
Hey! Get back here with that Prime Minister!
Oh, full action back again. The horses are like going on their own when the other carriage is like next to you.
Everyone all right?
You seem to have come through unscathed. You have our thanks, Mr. Fry.
It was Gladstone. I bet my life on it. This is perfectly in keeping with this distinct lack of character. Show yourself, Gladstone! Show yourself, you feckless muck snipe!
Well, he's hardly going to be in the band with a puncher, is he?
Slow down.
Gladstone! That bloody man! He will pay for this!
Thank you. What do you intend to do about Gladstone, young man?
I assure you, madam, Gladstone is innocent in this.
But he tried to kill my husband.
Well, we'll look into Gladstone. Perhaps you can help me with another inquiry, madam. A gentleman with ties to Parliament, older, wears cavalry uniforms and has a large mustache.
You seem like a rough and ready sort of fellow, Mr. Fry.
Well, yes I am, actually.
And are you familiar with the poorer districts of our city?
Roughly.
Wonderful. As it happens, I've been eager to tour the Devil's Acre. If you were to escort me, I'd be happy to assist you in your inquiry.
That strikes me as a dangerous idea.
Then it's settled. Come back here to Downing Street tomorrow night, 8 o'clock sharp. Good day, Mr. Fry.
But I...
Good day, Mr. Fry.
It's different. Okay, be right back.